We are joining Global Education Unpacked and meeting Dr. Richard Johnson.
I was a teacher. I taught English as a third, fourth, fifth language to these amazing young people in a rural town in the south part of Burkina Faso. I also met my wife there. She was a Peace Corps volunteer, and we've been together now for over 40 years. And came back and realized after that experience that I wanted to teach. I just didn't know at what level. And so I began substitute teaching. At first I did a master's degree in poetry and poetics and linguistics with a concentration in what they called poetics, which is the linguistic analysis of poetry. Anyways, long story short, ended up becoming enamored of Old English. So the language of England, of the British Isles, if you will, from roughly 450 to about 1200. It's a Germanic language. It's related to English. It's the sort of precursor of what we think of as modern English. Moved out here with my wife in the early 90s and started a PhD program in medieval studies at Northwestern. And then got this job in 97 before I'd actually finished defending my dissertation or any of those sorts of things.
They took a chance on you here.
They certainly did, yes.
For me.
I became enthralled with all of the different opportunities afforded us at a community college. I'd been trained at Research One University thinking about going on to teaching medieval studies and having grad students and all of those sorts of things. And I was able to have a 30-year parallel career in medieval studies, going to annual conferences for 25 years, publishing a book and countless articles and those sorts of things. But it was a sideline. Harper doesn't necessarily put a whole lot of stock in that, or community colleges don't in general. And so instead, to work through the promotion system and things like that, I got involved in international education. And that made all the difference in the world, and it's the reason I'm here 28 years later.
Yes, international, to me, I think you and I have the same experience, is that we've had the international life before.
Exactly.
And then it's part of you.
Exactly.
And then you're like, oh yeah, like, of course.
Yeah.
But other people don't think of that. They think, oh, international is like an additional thing. For us, it's already ingrained.
Exactly.
Like it's in you, the international.
It's a part of who we are, right? It defines how we see the world, how we interact with others.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you started the Office of International Education. How did you decide to even have an office? What was that about? Give us a little bit of feedback. And also, think about people who, let's hope, are going to watch and listen to this podcast.
Hey, I want to get involved.
I want to do that. So what are your tips and suggestions for that?
Absolutely. I think of international education at Harper in sort of three phases, if you will. There's the 80s and 90s when we were involved in as one of the founding schools of the local consortium, the Illinois Consortium for International Studies and Programs. And it launched study abroad, if you will, in a cultural sense. There was ostensibly some professional development opportunities, but really it was fairly limited. Then there were the 2000s when we had a particularly notorious president who basically shut things down. And literally shut everything down. There was a lot he shut down. But anyways, international education was one of those things. That's the second phase. I think of those, and I'm loath to use this as a medievalist who doesn't actually believe in the term, but those were our dark ages, so to speak.
Dark ages.
And then around 2010, we had a transformation in leadership at the president's level, and then at the sort of associate vice president or vice president level for academic affairs and provost. And they really saw a value to international education. And there was a competitive application process for a coordinator, so to speak, of international education. And it was bringing together two functions that had previously been shared among 2 or 3 different people. There was the study abroad part, there was the campus programming, and there was the professional development curriculum infusion part. In 2010, the idea was that it would all be brought together in a single coordinator. And I threw my hat in the ring, and fortunately, I got the position. And so I've been doing that essentially. I did it from 2010 to 2022, and now I'm back.
You're back.
Some people chagrin. But anyway, and in those first few years, we really didn't have an idea of what was possible in international education at a community college. So I brought in 3 veteran international educators to do sort of a SWOT analysis and produce a report. And that was 2011, 2012, and they produced a 40-page report of where we were, what some of our opportunities would be, and out of that report, I built our first internationalization plan. And it was a 4-year plan that then got us to about 2014, if you will, 2015. And what it suggested was that each of these areas presented unique opportunities. Study abroad in and of itself, but there were also risks, there were threats. And so study abroad, we worked very carefully with a wonderful faculty member, Craig Stetner, may rest in
Yes.
peace, many people know Craig, and really built the program around his dynamism, his vision for a biology field study course in Costa Rica. And that ran very successfully for a number of years, and it allowed us to put in place an application process, a risk management process, and an oversight process that protected the sanctity and integrity of the academic program, but also made sure that our students were safe and that the program was transferable, credit-bearing, and contributed
Absolutely.
to the academic goals of the students. And so we really got study abroad in place. The campus programming was fairly straightforward, but it was pretty haphazard. One week we might have a film festival. Another week we might have a speaker here on the Rwandan genocide. The following week we might have a mariachi band sneaking through the corridors. And I remember the president at the time, Dr. Ender, saying to me something to the effect of, "This is all really interesting and cool, but how does it hang together? How do we know that there's an impact on the students?" And at first I had the typical faculty responses, what does he know? That's frickin' president. But he was right. There was no coherence to it. And so I started to think about how we might achieve that coherence and came up with the idea of focusing. When I applied for the position, I had talked about focusing on a region of the world in a very coherent and structured, deliberate way as part of my application, but I hadn't really thought about what that meant. And it wasn't until about 2012, 2013 that we started to put that in place. And it was really built around a study abroad opportunity for students that our colleague in geography, Mokila Maitha, proposed at the time. So in the fall of 2012, he had proposed this idea of a student study abroad opportunity to Kenya, and it fell through because there were a number of challenges, the first of which being the sort of travel advisory, if you will, and the administration said, no, we're not going to send faculty there. I'm sorry, to send students there. So then I approached him and I said, what would you think about doing something similar for faculty? We're expendable. They'll let us travel anywhere. No, just kidding.
We think we're replaceable. Everybody is replaceable.
Yes. And so he said, sure. And he started to put together a really dynamic program for that. Unfortunately, then there was the Westgate bombing, and which took Kenya off the table, but we pivoted very quickly to Uganda and Rwanda. And that became our first faculty field seminar. And around that infrastructure, around that experience, I then started to think about what should professional development to prepare faculty to do this faculty seminar should we build? And I conceived of this, the Global Region of Focus, which was at the time a 3-year cycle, if you will, of campus programming, faculty development, study abroad, curriculum infusion, et cetera. And it began with a year of faculty preparation. So our first year of the Africa Global Region was 2014. And that first year we did faculty development in the summer of 2015. No, it was the summer of 2014 that we had the faculty seminar to Uganda and Rwanda. We took 9 faculty, and they then infused their courses with a professional development curriculum infusion module, and we tracked them for 3 years. And I'll come back to that in a little bit. But we did that. And then the second year, we invited, through the Fulbright Scholar and Residence Program, we had a scholar on campus for a full semester. And that was the second year, was visiting scholars, promoting and advancing curriculum infusion, et cetera, through their presence on campus. And then the second and third year, the idea was to take students to the region. Africa is pretty tricky, but we actually were able to take 2 different study abroad programs. Mukila took a group of students through the honors program to Zimbabwe, and he and I took students to Uganda as well during that period. And that was our first region. And then in 2017 to 2020, we did Latin America. We hosted another Fulbright Scholar, and then 2020 to 2024, which is when we transitioned to the 4-year program, we hosted a Pakistani sociologist, Dr. Rabia Ali. And so that program has been very dynamic, and that's the insight around our approach, if you will. I'll say three more things and then I'll be quiet.
No, we're having a podcast. You can't be quiet.
At least on this issue, right? Because I think I've bored people to tears with the story. But the reason I think this was successful is that not only did we build an intentional sort of approach that I'll talk about if you're interested to internationalization on campus, but we made sure that it was fiscally responsible so that the administration would see that we were using college resources in a responsible way, that it was accountable. So these weren't just boondoggles, if you will. Previous administrations had thought faculty travel was really about vacation and those sorts of things and didn't put value in it. And so we really built an accountable process around that. And then finally, it was accessible. It was accessible to all of the stakeholders on campus, to students, to faculty, to staff, and administration. And so those three areas, I think, really convinced the college that this was a good idea, and they put a number of resources at our fingertips. During that 2010 to 2022, we went from cobbling together part-time assistants, from interns, part-time special folks that were doing double duty, part-time here, part-time there, until 2018 when we were able to hire our first full-time program assistant. As a coordinator, I was called faculty coordinator from 2010 to 2014. I would go to conferences and people would say, "Oh, you're the coordinator. Can you hook me up with the director and schedule a meeting?" So they
You're
thought
not important enough.
I was a scheduler, exactly. I just coordinated their calendar.
Yeah.
And so I just started calling myself director. And there was some consternation here on campus, but I put it on my business cards, gosh dang it, and it became colloquially accepted. And then in 2017-18, my 20-year office mate, Patty Ferguson in speech and communication, she decided that for the last few years she wanted her own office. And if you ever stopped by my office before she moved out, you'll know why. It was packed with all of my stuff. She was reduced to about a 15% surface area to decorate with her dogs and calendars and things like that.
Faculty are very attached to their offices.
We are, yeah.
It is like a scary thing. An office is really important.
It is. You have to have a landing pad. Right? That's where all the craziness. Anyway, so she moved out, and then I talked to the associate provost at the time, Brian Knettel, who's now gone on to greater glory as
Yes,
president
he's
of WBOS.
president.
I talked to him about, we started to talk about an office around that time, and it made sense to have a physical place. And because she had moved out, that room, my former office, became the Office of International Education as a physical location. And Brian, Associate Provost Knettel, we cleaned it out, we repainted it, we put rugs down, they changed all of the furniture, he updated it, and that's, so L229, L Building Room 229 is the Office of International Education to this day. It was my faculty office from 1997 to 2020, 22, something around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the genesis of the office.
I think it's important to say like that this program, the programming that you have is continuing because we're going to have another area of focus and
Yeah.
we're going to have Morocco. Are we going to Jordan?
We are not. We've
Just
substituted Tunisia for
Tunisia.
Jordan, yes.
Okay, so Tunisia.
The field seminar summer 2026 will be to Morocco and Tunisia.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
be jealous, everybody else. We're going to...
Hey, it's open to everyone but students. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yes.
Yeah.
But the students may eventually get to go
Yeah.
as we create the programming
Yeah.
for that as well.
They're the reason we're here.
So what do you think internationalization looks like at a college campus? Because now we have an office, but when I thought about international at a community college, I would probably say in the beginning I had the same mindset probably as students do. Well, if I'm a transfer student, I'm going to do that when I go to the four-year school. Why
Exactly.
would I do that at a community college?
Yeah.
And I think I probably had that attitude, unfortunately. So what do you think internationalization means at a school, even if they can't have an office? What is it to internationalize in a community college level, and why do you think it's important?
So the first way I want to answer this question is to talk about what is internationalization. We know globalization at an economic level and all this, but what does internationalization look like at a community college? And I think, first of all, there are a number of definitions by experts out there of what campus internationalization, comprehensive campus internationalization looks like.
Melissa Watley was on my podcast, so don't say anything
what?
counter what she
No,
said.
no, I love Melissa. She's awesome. She's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, like,
She's one of my heroes. As
she is.
She has not. Congrats to you. That's awesome.
I have to
feel-
publish it still, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's coming.
So I think that thinking about the definition of internationalization, taking insights of John Hudzik, Knight, and DeWitt, and all of these other people who have talked about it, I think it is the intentional, institutional-wide process that integrates intercultural, international, global dimensions into the core functions of the institution. And that means teaching, research, service, community-based exercise, activities, those sorts of things. So that's what internationalization is. When you look at community colleges, it's going to be different than what happens at the four-year schools. We are
Absolutely.
unique.
We are.
And I think that's the key, is that most of the researchers who talk about internationalization are thinking about the four-year schools. And our mobility, our flexibility is different, and I think affords us a lot more opportunities if we just think about it in a very creative way. So for me, at community colleges, there are a number of different ways to go about doing this. First, it can't be the responsibility, as you pointed out in the introduction, the responsibility of a single office, a single person, a single department, a single area. It is the responsibility of all of us to present the sort of intercultural, international, global dimensions, global perspectives to our students. You do that through curriculum infusion. You do that through study abroad opportunities. You do that through faculty development. You do that through career preparation with a global economy in mind. You think about international students as contributing to the internationalization of the campuses. So this is across all departments, across all offices. In some places, we're fortunate, as in our case, that it looks like an integrated sort of area, an integrated office that might lead the charge, but that is collaborating with other entities. There are over 1,100 community colleges across the United States. It is a unique sort of experiment in democracy, unique to the United States. There's technical education, tertiary, et cetera, and other places, but really community colleges were an experiment in democracy. And I think that we continue to live that ideal every day, and international, intercultural education is one of the ways that we can live up to that ideal.
So I want to ask you a difficult question. How do you think we're doing at Harper?
In terms of international education or the democratic experiment?
We'll leave the democratic experiment. I'm thinking of international education. As you've been in different conferences and you've talked to people and you've been involved in this for so long, maybe in comparison to other schools, but also like in your mind, how do you think we're doing in achieving this internationalization?
I think we're right on the cusp. I think that we have the opportunity to explode into the next phase, if you will. So if you think about that story, the tedious story I told you about the genesis of the office, it happened by fits and starts, really relying on the efforts of first one person, then a handful of person, and eventually, I hope in the next iteration, on a team. So you may have heard that as of July 1st, International Students Office at Harper College and the Office of International Education have been combined into a Center for International Education and Global Engagement. There is a budget that is allocated to that. There is a position of director for that center. We are looking to hire an international recruiter so that we would have 2 people involved with international students. And then the position of program specialist in the Office of International Education would become the study abroad coordinator, and the faculty coordinator would remain, or the faculty director, so to speak, would be the faculty coordinator of campus internationalization. I think that represents a unique opportunity for us to expand all of our initiatives, but it's going to require, I think, a couple of things. The first is allocation of resources. And we've technically done that in the creation of a unified budget that far exceeds the individual budgets of either the Office of International Education or the International Students Office. So the college has committed to that. I think that it's going to also require intentional hiring of that director. I think that position needs to be someone who knows community colleges. It ought to be someone who has experience in the classroom. It ought to be someone who has experience in managing international education programs and having built things from the ground up. There are two sides to the house, international students, and so international student services involves a variety of different things, from recruitment to enrollment to advising and management while they're here and those sorts of things. The international education side of the house involves all of the things we've already talked about: study abroad programming, faculty development, curriculum infusion, et cetera, and programming. I think the selection of that person, especially given the national landscape as it stands right now, that position, the director position, is going to be an opportunity to really set the path for the next few years, to then perhaps look at the landscape after the present administration, given the challenges that we've had. The third thing that I think that this bringing together affords us, the third opportunity it affords us, is the ability to appeal to more stakeholders.
I think that's really important.
And I think we talked about it a little bit later. It isn't the responsibility of any one group
Right.
of people, but it's faculty, it's staff, it's administration, it's students, it's all of us. We each have different roles in this larger job. The faculties are the custodian of the curriculum, and sometimes we hold on to those pretty tightly.
Yes.
But that's an opportunity. Staff are all of our support, not just students, but all of our support, and present a unique perspective and body of experiences. The administration sets policy, allocates resources, has a vision for the larger place of the college, if you will, in the community college landscape. And then, of course, students. They are the reason that we're here. We want to prepare them to be fully empowered citizens in an interconnected and often scary, even violent world.
Yeah, mostly right now. And so we have gotten these awards, so I would like for you to tell us what these awards are for. And then I want you to let me know, and our audience know, is how do we look as a college? Have we really gotten, I feel that yes, I do feel that we are very much in this international game, so to speak, and we're one of the leaders. We're an advanced college. I think there's other colleges that kind of are stepping up in the meantime. But what are these awards that we got?
Yeah. So first, we got two awards.
Yes.
In 2018, we got the NAFSA, which is a huge international organization of folks involved in international education. We got the Senator Paul Simon Spotlight Award. And that award focused specifically on our Global Region of Focus initiative. And that's what we won the award for. It recognized the flexibility, the dynamism of that particular initiative. And then
And let's mention Paul Simon, Illinois
absolutely.
senator.
Sure.
And I remember him, everybody remembers him who grew up enough here with his little bow tie.
Yes,
he was the bow tie senator.
Bow tie senator.
The bow tie senator. But yes, I totally remember him.
And his daughter actually played banjo.
Look at
his
you
daughter
two.
was Dr. Kenneth Ender, former president of Harper College, and then my esteemed colleague, Professor David Richmond, and I went to accept the award in 2018. The second award is from the Institute for International Education, IIE, which is the entity that really oversees the entire Fulbright program on behalf of the State Department.
Okay.
And they have an award called the Andrew J. High School Award, which is for innovation in international education. And so it really looked at our entire approach and awarded us on the strength of that approach. And I want to stress this because our approach is not just the global region of focus, but instead it's a three-pronged approach.
Yeah.
We focus heavily on strategic planning, where we have a set of annual goals, we have a vision statement, and we have a series of objectives that we want to achieve over the course of a 3 to 5 year period. We have annual goals, we have accountability and responsibility for achieving those goals, and we benchmark against other institutions. And the Office of International Education strategic plan is always connected to the college's strategic plan. So we work very closely and follow those same cycles of strategic planning. The second area is mobility. And by mobility, we mean not only sending students out on study abroad, but also international students. So we have a very vibrant international student population, and it contributes tremendously to our internationalization efforts. But we also bring scholars to campus. So we've benefited, as I mentioned earlier, from the Fulbright Scholar in Residence program. My colleague Mukila Maitha and I also got a Fulbright Hayes Group Projects Abroad grant and award where we took 12 high school and community college faculty for 6 weeks to Kenya and Uganda, focusing on conservation and sustainability and environmental policies. We have memoranda of understanding with 3 different institutions in Latin America, 2 in Mexico and 1 in Costa Rica, and they bring visiting scholars to our campus as well and assist us
Yes.
with a variety of other initiatives. Mobility has also now come to incorporate what we call virtual exchange. And so I like to think of that as a dimension of mobility, bringing these international experiences to our classrooms using technology, leveraging technology to the advantage of our students.
Absolutely.
And then the global region of focus is the third area. We've already talked about that. It's a 4-year cycle of professional development, curriculum infusion, study abroad, and programming.
Absolutely. And I think also to mention, when we talk about infusion into the classroom, we do have a world cultures and diversity distinction for students, and we have it for our classes. So the business program has a class like that, but programs also have that. I think that is really important to share, that we are, when we say we're infusing curriculum, it's not whichever faculty wants to infuse curriculum. It is a standard
Systematic.
inclusion of international curriculum into the programming of the college. So I just want to point that out, that it's really, that is part of having that as part of the curriculum. And it's really important to have that. It's not random. It's definitely, when faculty go on these trips, and yes, they bring back and they put things into their classroom, but it is very systematic as well into our classes.
And I think that's a brilliant point. I like to think of it as akin to vertical integration versus horizontal integration. Traditionally, we think of these sorts of initiatives as being vertically integrated. We've tried to be far more horizontal in our integration of international perspectives, global perspectives, and opportunities across the campus. And one of the ways we did that was very strategic. We leveraged our shared governance committee, what was called International Studies and Programs at the time. Now it's called Global Engagement Committee.
Maybe I would love it that way.
And a subcommittee of that group in the mid-2010s started to think about global learning outcomes. As a campus, we had moved towards greater accountability and assessment, and we're starting to really base our data analysis and our collection on assessment and achieving learning outcomes. And so we started to think about global learning outcomes. And we devised several, we connected them to all study abroad programs and those sorts of things. But we realized it was still, the integration was vertical. It was having a very limited impact. So I started to talk to the curriculum committee about revising the World Cultures and Diversity graduation requirement. It was begun in 5, but it was, in my opinion, fairly haphazard. It talked about having a 25% of contribution of diverse perspectives into the curriculum, but it never really specified what that meant, what it looked like. And so we had a number of courses that ostensibly represented world cultures and diversity, but there was no way of measuring it. There was no way of actually saying, oh gosh, we are achieving these outcomes, because there were no outcomes assigned to it.
Right.
So we took about 2 years to come up with a series of world cultures and diversity outcomes, and we revamped the entire process, presented it to the curriculum committee, and since 2020 it has been the accepted way of, we've gone through all the courses. There were 70 courses that we went through this resubmission process according to this new outcomes-based system. And now we're set to start to assess the impact of that. And for the first time in 20 plus years, we're actually going to be able to look and say, yes, we are achieving outcome 1, 2, or 3, et cetera.
Exactly.
Because it's going to be based on actual assessment data.
Exactly. So I'm part of that because
Yeah.
we have a class in my program that is work cultures and diversity, and it helps students because they're required to have a class like that. So
Yes,
when we
yes.
started out, that was the goal, is to help students go through our program and not have to search for these classes around campus. And I think more and more programs have done that, and career programs particularly added that, but I think it's really important to add things like that
Yeah,
to your
yeah.
curriculum, and to think that, as faculty, to think through all of that.
Yeah. And you mentioned careers. I think career and technical education is a really exciting new frontier. They've always been open to these perspectives, but given the density, if you will, of their
Yes.
curricula, it's been hard to penetrate, so to speak. And that area is opening up now. You participated this summer in the
Yes.
Digital Promise exercise, and I think
Yes.
that's really starting to open people's eyes to possibility and giving us those were amazing resources
Yeah.
that they connected us with.
That was an exciting one. I really do agree that, and I really like the fact that we had some health careers doing
Yeah.
that, listening to what they're doing and how they're going to internationalize their courses. That was really exciting to hear because they really do need to do that. We have a lot of that population here, just because it doesn't have to be just about going abroad. We have,
Exactly,
at least
exactly.
in the United States, right?
Yep.
We have all of this population, all different kinds of populations. But we're getting close to the end of our.
Oh,
of
no.
I'm definitely next week if you want. Although we might be going into O week next
Yeah,
week. That's
so-
not. But I'm going to give you a rapid fire. A couple.
Okay,
of
yes,
questions.
yes.
Coastal View or Mountain View?
Coastal all the way.
All the way water. You're a water guy.
Yes.
Me too. I'm absolutely. Historic castle or modern architecture?
Hey, I'm a medievalist.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that, but yes.
Yeah.
I think I might go modern, even though I do like the castles,
Yeah.
but it's like, you've seen one, you've seen a whole bunch. And
Ouch. No,
But you
that's
know
what they say about cathedrals. Not true. Not
Oh,
true.
there's three that I think are the cathedrals to see. So Notre Dame, I'm hoping they've
Yes.
got that finished. The one in Toledo, Spain. I don't,
In Barcelona or Toledo?
Toledo.
Oh, no, I don't know that one.
Yeah, it has like huge El Greco in there.
Ah,
Yeah, so
okay,
and it
okay.
looks
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
That cathedral
I've
is
been
there.
to Sagrada Familia.
Yeah, that one is a bit
It's
ridiculous.
awesome. It's awesome. Come on.
You have to go
Anyway,
see it. Like
let's
it's
do it. We do. Yeah,
you
yeah,
do have to go
yeah.
see. They haven't finished it yet.
No.
Still not finished. Who knew that there was a
Yeah.
cathedral being built in
Yeah.
2025? Because you think of that as like
Yeah.
old
Oh, yeah,
stuff.
exactly. Yeah.
And then I'm Cologne
Yeah.
or Köln, Germany. I think those are my
Yeah.
three that I would say are like the three that you're right. Barcelona, you got to see.
Yeah, yeah.
Exploring Old English manuscripts or Instagramming snapshots abroad.
Old English manuscripts. All
Really?
around.
You're not
Yes.
gonna all of your
No.
travels. You're not gonna.
Take photos, but I just look at them myself.
Yeah, we got to start sharing. Tea in India or coffee in Colombia? Ooh.
Coffee in Colombia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coffee.
I'm a
Coffee
guy.
wins.
Yep.
Yeah, I know, but tea in India. You've been to India, right?
I've not.
You
No,
have not.
I've
Yeah.
not. No, I
Oh,
would love
I
to
haven't
go.
either.
Yeah.
But I love India.
Yeah.
Coffee.
Tea.
Europe, Asia, Africa, or South America?
Africa.
Africa. Wanna
Amazing
go?
continent.
Yeah.
It's an amazing continent.
I want to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
to that.
You have the North Africa, you have the Sahel region, you have
Yeah.
West Africa, East Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa. There's so many different parts
Yeah.
and so many, 56 countries, thousands of languages, cultures galore. It's just
Yeah.
an amazing place. And of course, having spent 2.5 years there, having met my wife there, I feel a deep connection
Yeah.
to the continent. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. I want to thank you so very much for joining us today and sharing your vision and the vision you've developed at Harper, which is amazing, and we thank you for that. If you've enjoyed this episode, please follow us on Instagram at Global Ed Unpacked. You can also watch the recorded show on YouTube at Global Education Unpacked once I edit it, and then find the audio version once I have it out on your favorite platform for podcasting. This episode was recorded live at WHCM Radio, produced by Blue, and theme music by DJ Double Dip, and it's called Mint, but you can find all his music on all the music channels. He's awesome. He was one of our students. He used to be in one of my class. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's fantastic.
That's so cool. I'll have to check it out.
Yes, DJ Double Dip. And thanks for listening. Until next time, keep exploring the road through education.
Keep it on. Thank
Keep it on.
Thank you.